Good afternoon, everyone. It's exciting to have you here join this webinar, and it's exciting to have you all. We are looking forward into having an interactive meeting, an interactive session. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Catherine Mailu, a project counselor working for CREW, Center for Rights, Education and Awareness. And at this juncture, I would like to introduce my organization, CREW. It's a feminist organization and working for, it's a national government, non-governmental organization whose vision is just to have a just and equitable global society, and champions and expands to actualize women's rights. And to do this, how do they do it? They do it through working through 4 pillars, whereby they have psychosocial, free legal representation, women voice and advocacy, and economic empowerment. In psychosocial support, CREW does provide free counseling services online and one-on-one to SGBV survivors, and it does also provide shelters to women and girls who have gone through GBV. On legal representation, they do that to women who have gone through GBV and girls to represent them free of charge at the legal point. For women and women voice and governance, they work with the county government at the grassroots to help these working in institutions to put up policies which are favorable to these women who have gone through that, so that they can be provided with the services that they feel are comfortable with them. And in the pillar of economic empowerment, CREW does empower people, the survivors, the girls and the women who have gone through SGBV to start up again. It is in fact that you find that a person who has gone through GBV, they have so much, they go through much, sometimes trauma, pain, and they mostly lost everything. So CREW gives them a platform through economic empowerment to start up again. And at this point then, I would like to introduce our topic, which is the silent pain in relationship. And at this point, we are really going through the 16 days of activism, whereby we are saying no to violence, stop violence. Violence is not a noble way of solving conflicts. So when I am introducing this relationship, silent pain in relationships, we find that most of the times human beings are in one form of relationship. And why do people go into relationships? It's because in these relationships, people expect to find love, to find warmth, to find affectionate, and even have that sense of belonging. But at times, most of the times, these relationships do cause pain. And as much as pain can be seen or it is obvious, there are some point where pain is so much silent that it cannot be seen. And this silent pain is what we want to talk about today, because this is a pain in a relationship that can go unnoticed, and it can be very disastrous to anyone who is going through it, and especially in our mental health. To a person, the mental health of a person who is subjected to this pain. Most of the time you find that the society will look it through rosy eyes and they'll not notice it. That if, like in some cultures, you find that they say, if I'm beaten, then that is I'm loved, of which it is not the case. So today we want to go deeper and see what kind of this relationship or this pain in relationships, this pain which is so silent, so that we can bring it up and maybe have it create an awareness even to the society. And with me to discuss this wonderful topic, I have my wonderful panelists. I would like to introduce Mr. Kimani Gidongo, who is an advocate, a counseling psychology, a mediator, and he's the chair of the KPS. Gidongo, you can just wave to the audience.
Thank you.
Asante sana, Mr. Gidongo. The next one we have Susan Gatia. Susan Gatia is a psychologist at Amani Counseling Center and Training Institution. Susan, wave to the audience.
Yes. Yes, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Susan. And we have Vivian Sitati, who is a project counselor at CRU. Yes, Vivian, wave to the audience. Yes, thank you very much, Vivian. The last and not the least, Edith Wasike is a counselor and a psychologist, and also the founder of Flourish Counseling Center. Yes, Edith, just wave to them. Thank you very much. And at this juncture, I would like to invite the audience also to interact with us in asking questions and responding to what we are saying. So I would like to go direct and interact with with my panelists in discussing this wonderful topic. And I would first want to start with Mr. Kimani Gidongo. Mr. Kimani Gidongo, would you please tell us and the different types of relationships that we have?
Thank you, Catherine, and good afternoon, my colleague panelists and all the audience from where they're listening from. It's a pleasure to join all of us in this particular conversation this afternoon. And it's just a beginning, perhaps, of one conversation that can go on for the rest of our lives, and we hope that it can make a difference within our society. As we sit in this discussion today, we form a relationship. We are actually in a relationship. Some of us are panelists, others are the audience, and there could be even others around there. So relationships are very, very many. We are all in one relationship or the other. But what normally happens is that you need to distinguish the relationship you are in. One of the most common relationship is a friendship kind of relationship. Then the next one could be an acquaintance. An acquaintance may not be a person you're going to see tomorrow or the day after. For instance, you step out and you're on the road, whether you're the driver or a pedestrian or being a passenger, you are in a relationship with the other road users. And therefore, those are just mere acquaintances that we form. We got family relationships. And lastly, we have the romantic relationships or the intimate relationships. And most likely, the topic this afternoon will be addressing issues to do with romantic relationships. Back to you, Catherine.
Okay, I think Catherine is experiencing internet issues. Kate, are you back? Yeah, just with the same spirit, Bwana Gidongo, in the different forms of relationship. I'd just love to ask, because our focus comes on intimate relationship, is there any form of violence in those relationships?
Absolutely, absolutely. And very, very many types of violence have been noted. And in Kenya, we have had the greatest advantage of having a law that has been formulated that actually looks into all those things, kind of a relationship, and in particular within the arena of intimate and or domestic partnerships that you are. But let me discuss what is intimate relationship, or what would you call a domestic relationship. And it simply means that if I am married to my spouse, that forms an intimate relationship. If I have had a previous relationship with somebody else, I may not be married to that particular person. That is also an intimate relationship. If I'm living in a household with a particular person, that may actually be a domestic relationship. It may not be an intimate relationship. Family members also form some kind of emotional and intimate relationship with one another. If I am engaged, or if I have a child with somebody else, or, and this is according actually to the law, which is the Domestic Violence Act of 2015, if I have a close personal relationship with another person, and therefore that close relationship with another person is what we may need to identify what it is, because we are even forming very, very close relationship with people we have never seen over Facebook, over Instagram, over WhatsApp, or whichever kind of a person you come across, and you start some form of a relationship. Back to you, Vivian.
Thank you, Catherine. Take over.
Thank you, Vivian, for standing in for me. I had a problem with my network. Sorry about that. Having gone through and just gotten some of the type of relationship that we are in, I'd like to thank Mr. Kimani, but just getting back on him, I would like just to him to help us understand the type of violence that are normally experienced now within an intimate relationship.
I'm muted. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, we can classify these kinds of violence into 5, according to me, and we have physical violence. We don't need a lot of definition of the word physical. We got emotional violence or psychological violence. We got financial violence. We got sexual harm or sexual violence. And the one that we know very well, I know people have been calling it emotional, but I want to categorize it on its own: silence. Silence on its own is a very, very deep kind of a violence. And allow me to borrow once again from the Domestic Violence Act of 2015 in Kenya, because it breaks down all these forms of violence into various words that we can actually relate ourselves with, the normal kind of words that we are used to. Because when you talk about emotional, when you talk about physical, when you talk about psychological, those words may be a little bit difficult for people to appreciate. But when you talk about issues like damage to the property of a loved one, defilement, economic abuse, what you may call the financial abuse, if you forcibly enter my premises or my residence, whether the parties share this particular property or not, harassment of whatever nature, and you have heard about the sexual harassment, incest, intimidation, physical violence, sexual abuse, stalking. You're stalking me, or over running through or scrolling down my phone, verbal abuse, or any other conduct that actually goes against the person to who that violence is directed to. And I know one of the words that this act may have missed, but it can come about, it can be assimilated in any other conduct, and that is shouting, because shouting takes quite some violent behavior, especially when it is very, very aggressive. So let me talk about those 5, broken down into those various words that I have given. Back to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Mr. Kimani, for highlighting all this, the intimate relationship, the violence that people go through in intimate relationship. It is indeed an eye-opener for many of us. Now, and just to ask Edith Sakwa, just to help us understand, it is true that people go through violence, the intimate partner violence. How would one really in this relationship would know that I am going through emotional and financial abuse? Because the physical one, everyone can see. How can really one get to know that I'm going through emotional and financial abuse? Susan, Edith, sorry.
Thank you, Catherine. And good afternoon, all. Yeah, and I want to talk about the emotional abuse, as you said. How can people, or even yourself, tell that you're going through an emotional abuse from the person that you love? This is an intimate partner. So the specific signs that you need to look out for, because even the victim themselves don't notice them on the start. They take some time to realize that they're being abused. So some of these signs that we can look out for are like controlling behaviors from the perpetrator. So when we talk about controlling behaviors, you find that this partner that is abusive wants to control all your actions. Like they want to know where you are, where you're going, who you're talking to, what you're eating, how you're dressing. They also want to control your feeling, how you need to feel. So you can't tell them this is how I'm feeling or this is how I think. They would want to control everything. You become like a child to them because they have to tell you what to do. Another sign, other than the controlling, you find that these people have they act jealously. So when you have a partner who is abusive, you find that they keep on accusing you of cheating. They keep checking your phone. They keep looking at where you're going. They're always jealous. They're always thinking that you're doing something behind their back. So they keep checking on where you are at. So this is being jealous. Another sign is these people are quite inconsistent. That for you as a victim, you can tell that my partner, what they say and what they do is quite different. So today they're saying this, tomorrow they're doing a different thing. They keep on changing their tactics so that you as a victim, you're not able to clearly say that I'm being abused. There's another form of another behavior with this kind of people. We say the passive aggressive people, or they use passive aggressive behavior. So they're not directly aggressive, whereby people can see, like you said, in physical abuse, we can see someone is being abused. But when it comes to emotional, they're very passive. So they abuse you, but they use some kind of behaviors or actions that many other people may not see. They're quite silent. For example, they would want to make you feel guilty. Yeah. Or they play with your mind, what we call a mind games or gaslighting. They make you deny reality, keep question your reality. You tell them you hear this, when you mention to them, they change. They're good at twisting. So they're passive aggressive. They're also good at manipulating. Then when you're so keen as a friend or as the victim, you also realize that these people are pathological liars. They lie to your face. They tell you today this, and they change completely. So you take it like a normal form of lie, but you find that they keep on using lies so that they're able to get, or rather gain control over you or get power over you, because that is the tactic or the goal of the abuser, is to get control over you so that you're under them. Then they also keep on blaming you. They do something like their own behaviors. They'll blame you for them being aggressive. They'll blame you for maybe even stalking. They'll blame you for almost everything. So these are some of the signs that you can check for you as a victim when you're looking for emotional abuse. But when you talk about financial abuse, there are also abuse that is also known as hidden abuse, because not many people will be able to tell that financially you're being abused. But how can you tell as a person or a friend? Can they tell that my friend is going through a certain kind of financial abuse? Oh yes, it's possible. So when you have this person who wants to know how you spend your money, yeah, they always checking you have to report, you have to give receipts of how you spend your money. They also might, if the people, they might also spend your money without your knowledge. I've had cases, especially clients mention that my spouse has used my money or they've withdrawn money without my knowledge. They also take loans on your account. And as a victim, you cannot say anything. So you end up paying for loans that you didn't use, you even don't know what the money was meant for. At times, this person might go out of their way to borrow money from your own relatives, especially your in-laws or even your friends. And when they borrow this kind of money, they don't pay back. So for you as a victim, you're forced to pay. Yeah. They at times avoid questions to do with money. So if you bring up a question that, I've noticed that this money has been missing, they avoid that kind of question, and it can cause conflicts. People can fight just because you brought out a question concerning money. And they also are others who pressure you as a victim to even quit your job. The aim of these people is to empower, to take care, to take over you, and make sure that you're dependent on them. So financially, you're dependent on them. You beg for money, they feel good. They control everything. And at times you find that they are entitled even to your own money. Even if you're working as a wife or as a husband, you find that they're entitled to your own money. And therefore, when you want to use, you have to ask them. You have to tell them, this is what I want to do with my money. This is what I want to do with this for the children. So yeah, it is possible to pick out these signs, and friends can tell that their friends are going through a certain kind of abuse, especially the financial and the emotional. But as we said earlier, it's not picked out quickly like you pick the physical violence. Many people suffer in silence, then it comes to be noticed after a period of time. Thank you. Back to Catherine.
Thank you very much, Edith Sakwa, for that elaborative answer to our audience. It is important to understand that, to hear what you've said, that it is true that people can really get to know sometimes if they are keen that they're emotionally being abused, probably pointing on those areas. And also financially, economically, financially and emotionally. So, being kind of silent pain, silent abuse. Indeed, you've really highlighted and you've given us a good answers. Now back to, I would like to ask Susan Gatia. I imagine that people who are going through emotional abuse, financial abuse, or even other forms of abuse, they could be going through problems and they do not understand how to go about it. I would like Susan Gatia to help us understand how this violence affects the mental health of a survivor or of any person going through this. Yes, to you, Gatia, Susan.
Thank you, Catherine. Let me just add something that I think Edith has highlighted very, very ably about power struggles that are involved in intimate partner violence. And I just found a very interesting quote that says that all abusers have one thing in common. They all share power struggle, and at the heart of every abuse, whether sexual, whether financial, is power struggle. And I think for people who are in intimate relationships, it is important to see that at the end of the day, what is needed and what the abusers are trying to do. They are fighting for power, to control, and power to manipulate so that you don't have a sense of independence. But back to the question that Catherine, you've asked about what are the effects of the topic that we are discussing today on mental health. I think it is important to say that I found a quote again from actually a study that was done in South Africa. And they were saying that every childhood experience is associated with men's adult perpetration of abusing. That means every time a child in a family setting goes through neglect or goes through sexual abuse, physical abuse, deprivation of resources, there's a sense in which that child follows them through life, and indeed they might be perpetrators themselves. And I just found that study so clear that when you think of the people, of the adults who are abusing others, particularly because majority of it has to do with men, a good part of it, perpetrators are men, you will find that there's a sense in which their mental health was affected when they were young by the familiarity of the environment that they grew up in. And in addition to that, I think most of the time when women, or even the small percentage of men that we have who are going through intimate partner violence, it doesn't start as severe. It starts as very mild. Maybe somebody is shouting at you, a lady, maybe in a marital relationship or romantic relationship, somebody is shouting you today, and then they say, sorry, I'm sorry about that. After a few days, you begin to experience mild symptoms like gastrointestinal, your stomach is paining and you're always going to the chemist to get some antacids. Or after some time, maybe that continues, and then there's anxiety, you're not able to sleep well. After some time, maybe you have headaches. You find that maybe at the end of the day, you find yourself always in a chemist looking for painkillers. Sometimes you just find yourself, you are sad. You are just experiencing a sense of sadness just in the office. Maybe you are at your place of work where you are, you just feel you're just keeping a low mood of, I'm not happy. And when you trace it, it is coming from something, maybe some relational issue. Like Mr. Githongo said at the beginning, that we are unable to resolve at our homes or in those relationships. But then when this is not handled well, if there is no intervention to address some of this abuse, whether overt or covert, whether mild or whether severe, if by the time that our body is beginning to adjust to a headache, a chronic pain here and there, and we don't respond right away, then it goes down, it doesn't go away, but instead, it then predisposes us to severe mental health disorders. And of course, the first one that majority of women go through is depression. And many people have said that actually women suffer depression twice as much as men. Because again, women don't want to talk about some of those intimate issues out there. So they suffer silently over a long period of time, to a level where at the end of the day, their chemical imbalance in the brain then takes root, and they find themselves then needing to see a psychiatrist. So it does then, intimate partner violence then affects women that way, and even some men. At its worst, of course, there is a disorder we call post-traumatic stress disorder. Depending on what kind of abuse that the person has gone through, some people then develop post-traumatic stress disorder. And if somebody is suffering through, a woman is suffering through post-traumatic disorder, it means they have many symptoms that include excessive anxiety or fear, and they have recurring thought patterns of what happened, or I was beaten, I was chased, I was called these names, and they vividly remember those kind of episodes, even when they are sitting down in their sitting room. And when people suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, it comes with other disorders. It is never alone. And that's why then this predisposes then people from suicide, because the person is so overwhelmed by some of the challenges that they have gone through. Of course, then I needed to say that also issues of, you can see sometimes women or even men, somebody who was not taking alcohol, they begin to abuse, not just take, but they begin to abuse alcohol. And part of it is because they're trying to numb the pain in that relationship where I cannot be able to resolve it. They begin to abuse, which again predisposes them to even disorders that are associated with substance abuse. I haven't talked about even low self-esteem, where somebody was vibrant, somebody was even maybe a good student, maybe a good worker, and all of a sudden they coil back and they begin to just doubt their abilities, they begin to doubt their contribution, they begin to die inside. And it is because somebody has subdued their sense of self. Somebody has called you names until you have believed it. Somebody has thrown you words, maybe called you, maybe you're fat or you're short or you're too dark or you're too light, until you have you've been pushed to a corner. You believe what they said, and you lose your sense of self-esteem. And of course, some people then even begin to lose meaning and find maybe I just want to die, or somebody says there's no need of continuing to live because since I'm good for nothing. There's something that we call chronic pain, which is associated with mental health. And chronic pain is where we call it, which is related to psychosomatic. I mean, in psychology, we call it psychosomatic pain. And this is the pain where has no organic origin. You've heard most of the time women or even men say, I have a pain on the back. You go to hospital, they do x-ray, they do every kind of test, but the doctor says there is nothing, everything is clean. But then the person or the patient is constantly experiencing a lot of pain. Even sometimes they're not able to walk on the limbs, maybe headaches, maybe on your hands and all that. And chronic pain is actually a psychological response to some of these things we are talking about. And so and maybe some of us have experienced it, so it's one of the effects of intimate partner violence. And of course, I need to say that one of the hospitals here in Nairobi, they have that pain clinic. And if you go there to Nairobi Spinal Injury, you will see there's a clinic every Tuesday for pain. And if you go there, it is about, it has got nothing to do with injury, but it has everything to do with psychological pain. And it is good to say before I leave that majority of them are women. So this is an important topic and to highlight and to even create awareness. Back to you, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for that elaborative answer that you've given unto us. And somehow, just to kind of summarize what Susan is saying, and what we are getting from this is like, we are saying that without mental health, we do not have good physical health. And this is one thing that we know that, and we are getting that it is very, very much important to marry our physical health and our mental health. Without it, definitely what we are hearing from what Susan is sharing is that we will have problems with our, our physical health. On that note, Susan, having said that I've heard you highlight quite a number of issues or disorders or mental health problems that come with this violence. Are you able maybe to tell us how can one really prevent this? From an intimate relation, how can one prevent this? Is it possible to do it?
Thank you, Catherine. Sorry, my camera was not on. A friend just sent me a text to tell me I need to put it on. I'm sorry about that. Yes, so your question is, how can we prevent? This is what I would say about prevention. I think it is a multi-level kind of approach that we need to engage here. And when we talk about multi-level here, I'm saying there's a sense in which we need to begin from an individual level, where as a person, I need to evaluate, given the quote that I gave earlier on from the study that was done in South Africa. It's good to know that, to know where I come from, my family of origin. Did I witness violence? Did I see my parents or my relatives having issues to do with the topic we are talking about, with painful relationships? If I witnessed, or myself, did I go through it? Was I abused physically? Was I abused sexually? Was I, in which way as a person? It is good to do a personal inventory and see, how is my background like? Why would I need to do that? So that, because as I said, when we go through it as children, most likely we will perpetuate it as adults. And I think understanding my background and understanding where I'm coming from helps me then to deal with my background issues at a personal level. You know, I can see a counselor, I can be in social circles to be able to address some of that.
It appears we are losing Susan. It appears we are losing Susan. And from what I'm hearing, from what I gathered from her conversation, I heard her say that from a study, it's like we have to look of our, what we call genogram, our background, where we come from, that what I have gone through, what my parents went through, probably I may go through it as a person. So it is important for us probably to see a counselor, to see someone who can help. And basically you'd find that like traumatized children tend to live to traumatize others when they grow up. And on this, as we wait for Susan to come back probably to complete what she had to say, I would want to just see what Vivian has to say about, okay, it appears that Susan is back. Susan, you can hear us?
Yes. Maybe let me keep my camera off so that I see whether it will be better. So I was saying that at a family level, once you have done with examining self and just working on ourselves to see how we can be better at relating with other people, I think the next level is the family level, where I think parents, those of us who are parents, we should encourage our children. And that is the next level, you know, encourage our children to learn how to resolve conflicts. Even if your child is 5 years, they are always conflicting. I think being able to help our children or even adolescents to be able to know, how do I resolve conflicts? How do I work with people in my school without fighting? How do I respect other people's rights? How do I learn to communicate in a way that honors one another? So I think that is at a parent level. But also, before I leave the parent level or the family level, I think couples or families should model what we are talking about, instead of couples resolving their conflicts and their fighting in front of the children. I think they should take such matters far away from their own, because then they predispose their children to gender-based violence in the future. And so they need, parents or couples need to model a sense of how can I resolve conflict? What do I do when I'm angry? How can I contain my emotional self? How do I self-control myself so that I'm not destructive to my partner? So the children then will be able to see this is what this is how to resolve issues. This is how to communicate to others in a good way. And then moving swiftly, then I think the other level, I was calling it the institution level. And I think it is important at institutional level. And institution here, I'm talking about schools, colleges, I'm talking about maybe mosques, we are talking about even churches. I think creating open and inclusive environment for people to speak about IPV or intimate partner violence. You know, the way people talk about nowadays, even adverts, there's nobody who doesn't know certain issues in the country. The way that we have prime news, I feel we have reached a level right now where we need to be able to highlight issues of intimate partner publicly and a little bit more aggressively. And this is because of the increase in the numbers of people, and especially women, who are going through it. You know, it's been said that most men, again, are the ones who abuse, but we can seek in this institution, we can seek conversations, to have conversations that are related to gender-based violence or perpetrators of this topic that we are discussing today. Have conversations with men and boys, and even women, because again, also women are perpetrators. Have conversation at institutional levels. And here, when you talk about, for example, primary schools, if you listen, for those of us who have children, you listen to some of the stories that are coming from our primary schools, you can hear stories of, oh, that boy kicked that girl, and the teachers didn't do anything about it. So I think at institution level, it's good to maybe work more with teachers and work more with administration to promote that kind of sensitivity, where boys don't feel that it is okay for me to use power, my energy and my power over a girl because I'm more energetic or more powerful. So I think for me, it's one of the things that we can do, creating that awareness and being loud at institution levels to be able to lessen or to create that awareness. Couples, and this is what I'll say last, I think couples, there should be opportunities for couples, maybe at, again, institution level, families, couples, to be able to discuss, to be helped to know, how do we communicate better? How do we resolve conflicts as couples? How do we live or coexist with each other? Because from the quote that I quoted from the beginning, I'll keep going back to it. It does seem that issues, perpetration of violence, family, intimate partner violence, it comes first and foremost from the family level, from the couple level. And so if we are going to do any prevention, I think we need to do it we need to begin there. So just having couple forums, couples should be accountable. Those of you who are married, you should be accountable and have other people, you know, give you feedback on how you're relating with your spouse, so that it doesn't become obvious for a man to shout at his wife, you know, in public, and it becomes, oh, that's how I grew up. What is wrong with that? So such forums, of course, at national level, one of the things that I do appreciate is just the fact that when I said about power struggles, I think having just women have opportunities, equal opportunities, so that then women are not nationally subdued because of the fact that one is wearing a dress, but because, you know, because those are power, we're just what we are calling power struggles at the beginning, or power, you know, where people, I don't know what to call them, just power struggles. So that then women have equal rights to know that if I'm a man and there's another woman there, it's like we have equal opportunities at a national level to know that I can do something just as well as my colleague can do, and I should not be discriminated just because I'm a woman, because then that speaks loud and clear to this topic about power, just being subdued. So that's my long and short of it. Catherine, back to you.
Thank you, Susan Thank you, Susan Gatia, for that elaborate answer. And I'm sorry that you had lost me at some point. However, I just wanted to ask now to Vivian. I just wanted to throw a question to Vivian, that we have gone through many, we have realized that people are going through intimate relationship, violence, different types of violence. And you find that this pain, these people who are going through this, many of them do not report. What are the hindrances that maybe cause them not to report? Over to you, Vivian.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathleen, for the invite. I think one, I love the conversation a lot about the pain or the silent pain in the relationship, because at the end of the day, we're all in one form in a relationship or the another, and there is a form of either violence going on, there's a form of abuse going on, there's a form of stigma going on in that form of a relationship. Yet it's very difficult actually to open up and speak about it. I look at it from first at an individual level as a person who is experiencing the kind of maybe the pain in the relationship as a person yourself. There are these talks that comes to us. I'm a married woman, probably, let me just use maybe I'm in a given religion and there's how people looks at me. So, or maybe people will say, oh, you know, you are educated, or maybe you are so and so in the community. So you're asking yourself these questions as a woman or as a person in that relationship or as a man in that relationship. If I go out there and share how I feel about this relationship, how will people see me? So there's that individual mindset, I would say, that self-talk that comes to a person in a way of asking yourself so many questions that what will people say about you in that relationship? So that will become the first block to block you from getting any kind of help. So it becomes like a first entrance, which is self. Then I'm also looking at a family level. Families, most of the time, we are so keen at protecting our name. And I'll call it maybe family honor. Like, what will people say when, for example, I'm sharing with my mother-in-law how my husband is treating me in a relationship. My mother-in-law will be like, keep quiet because we need to protect our name. Keep quiet because people won't be able to hear it. So for that reason, and because there's that sense of I want to belong to that family, I don't want to become the bad one, then I will say, let me just then be keeping quiet about the whole issues. Then I'm also looking at the laws, and I'm also looking at even the resources that are around us to help us even report. I'm looking at an example whereby someone maybe in north areas, whereby they've gone through maybe violence, either physical or either sexual violence or either emotional or psychological. Are there facilities that can be able to, even if I report, are there people who can be able to support me? If I go to the police station, and for example, I'm a man, and I go to the police station telling them that I was beaten by my husband, if they become a laughing place in the police station, or am I going to be supported? So you find that at the end of the day, I'll say that there are so many entrances about the reporting, or maybe getting help, or even just looking for counseling, looking for medical, looking for spiritual help that comes around the violence. So actually, we will not say that there's just one particular hindrance that makes someone not to get help, but it comes from a systematic point of view, right from the person to then the family, to then the community, and even the national government that comes around. Thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you, Vivian. At least we can see that it is true that people can get hindered from reporting these issues. And the first hindrance is the self. Probably what I hear her say from the stigma that they've gone through, what the society would say, what the family to protect their names, and what have you. And if now we are to look these, why people do not report and how they can be helped, I just want to throw a question to Kimani Githongo, and to help us understand if there is anything that, any law that says to tell us about a law that says something about violence in such relationship. Is there a law that can help such people who are going through these in a relationship?
Thank you, Catherine. As a matter of fact, Kenya, we have a very, very progressive system of laws on issues, relationships. It's only that sometimes people may not be very much aware. But from the very, very fundamental, law that we know, which is called the Constitution of Kenya, there are some particular articles which are designated for this particular kind of situation in terms of relationships. And then we have the criminal law, we have the civil law, and we have the family law. All these laws do actually provide for the dignity of the person. If we look at the Constitution, the Bill of Rights in our own Constitution, and you can specifically look at Articles 26, 27, 28, 30, 31, 32, and to be very precise, we say at Article 26 that we have the right to life. What kind of life is that? The kind of life that you're not going to be subjected to any sort of abuse, to any kind of violence. And the Constitution does not stop there. It goes on in Article 27 and says that you have, as a human being, equality and freedom from any sort of discrimination. And what Susan and Edith were talking about, that you cannot be discriminated because you are a female, because you are young, because you are short, because you are whatever kind of a person you are. You cannot be discriminated, and that is our Constitution. Then Article 28 talks about human dignity, and what kind of dignity does a human being require? And it is dignity free of any sort of exploitation, abuse, or violence. Then Article 30 talks about slavery or forced labor or being held like a slave. And you know, in our relationship, sometimes we are held like we are in a slavery kind of a situation. And Edith was able actually to articulate that very well. And I can even go to our common greetings that changed with the advent of mobile phones, that my spouse will call me, and instead of saying, hello, how are you? He says, uko wapi? Where are you? You know, that is a form of control. You may take it lightly, but that is actually a form of control. Then we got Article number 31, which talks about privacy. And privacy begins right at, why are you asking me where I am? In any event, I should not also hide where I am. I should actually say where I am. I am at the workplace, or I am somewhere else. Sometimes it goes beyond that. Who are you with? What are you doing? Those kind of things. The right to privacy is guaranteed to you by our own Constitution, including what I had said a little bit earlier on, you bursting into my room, you bursting into my house without any sort of invitation, whether you are paying rent for it or you're not paying rent for it. It should be upheld with lots of respect. Then the freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, freedom to believe, freedom to hold whatever opinion that somebody has, and that is under Section 32. You can have a look at the Bill of Rights and our own Constitution, and you'll see actually these lots and lots that guarantees that we should not be abused in whichever way that we are. That is under our Constitution. If we go to the criminal law, the criminal law has got various acts of parliament which also criminalize violence against any person. The Sexual Offences Act is one of them. The Domestic Violence Act, I had alluded to it a little bit earlier on, and our penal code that is able to take anybody to court when you infringe against the freedom of the other person. We roll it down then to the family law. The family law, in particular the Children's Act, when any particular parent or guardian or foster parent is being very violent or abusive to a child, then that protects the right of a child. And also the rights of the children go further to issues to do with maintenance of the children, educating the children, clothing the children, and giving a name to the children. If you violate any of that, basically you are subjecting these children to harm and to abuse and to violence. Then we come to spouses. When we get married, whether through the legal way or through the customary way, like we know, if I am abusing my wife or my spouse economically, financially or in any other form, the Marriage Act has got provisions that say she can take me to court. And even if you're still married, you can provide maintenance for that particular spouse, or you can provide maintenance to our children in the event that I'm not taking care of our children. Interesting here is that even as we remain married, sometimes we could be separated physically or even by a court order. If I am harassing my wife in whichever way, or my former wife in whichever way, or my former partner in whichever way, you can actually go to court through the laws to do with the family, and you can actually obtain an order that Kimani should not go within 100 meters of his wife, whether at the workplace, whether at the church, whether at a political meeting or whatever. All that is provided for under our family laws, and therefore relationships are very, very protected. And lastly, in private law or in civil law, as we may call it, what normally happens if I have no relationship whatsoever with Catherine, but my conduct infringes on her rights or on her human dignity. It could be at the workplace. It could be at the matatu. It could be through the social media. Catherine has got the right to go to court and get redress that I have been harassing her, either through the phone, either physically or in whichever way. And Catherine will have the redress by the court, and I can pay her, and the court can also give an injunction that I do not subject her to this kind of punishment or violence. Because it is in the public domain, I may wish to point out what we have seen over the last 1.5 weeks. They are called the song colleagues. The song colleagues. And you can see the people that Sonko is giving out, either the videos or the clips or the whatever, they are people they had a relationship, whatever relationship it was. It could even be an information that he was getting from some people that creates a relationship with them. And you have seen that some people have gone to court, and the Sonko has actually been injuncted, or he has been restrained from releasing any more of those particular videos. And yes, our laws are there. They are very, very progressive. It is only that people may not know about them. And I am grateful to CREW that CREW, you can walk to CREW, and CREW will be able to give you some legal assistance who are going to take up your matter. It does not necessarily have to end up in court, because maybe an organization or an advocate can write a demand letter, and once the demand letter is written, maybe that kind of conduct can cease. So Catherine, yes, we are very protected. Let us take actual advantage of the laws that are there. Sante, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kimani Githongo, for educating really the audience. It is upon us as people to realize that the law is there to protect us. We are protected. No one has the right to beat you. No one has the right to violate you, whether in a family, whether in a matatu, wherever you are. You have a right. And if violated, the law is there to protect you. Thank you for making that a highlight to the audience. Probably many didn't know. And it is high time that also the audience and the public need to be made aware of the laws that exist, because many of people suffer because they do not know these laws. And to marry that with what I would like to talk to Vivian and to throw a question to Vivian, who is a project counselor at CREW, to help us understand what CREW then does to intervene in such areas. As in the beginning, we say that they have legal representation, they have psychosocial, economic empowerment, women and women voice and advocacy. Now, to you, Vivian, what are some of the interventions that CREW does to put in place to support the survivors of IPV?
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. CREW as an organization, one, it takes a holistic approach or integrated approach when supporting the survivors of IPV, because for one reason, CRU understands that you cannot help a client who is in intimate relationship, one, if they're still maybe in the same environment. As Edith and Susan had first spoken, you find that there's issues of power struggle and power control. And that is most of the time what a perpetrator or an abuser will use to get to their partner or the person in that relationship. So CRU, considering all that in picture, has put different measures to serve very different objective and even goals for their clients. The first one is the legal intervention. For example, because of the power issue, let me say financial issues, you find that maybe the woman is on the upper hand compared to the man, or the man is in the upper hand compared to the woman. So for this reason, they can be able to say, well, me, I'll get a lawyer, I'll get 1, 2, 3. CRU has given women and girls an opportunity to access lawyers to represent them even in the court, to be able to address their issues in case they feel violated. Also, just for the legal advice, I'm going through this in my relationship. Can I be able to get some legal help? Just advice doesn't mean I have to go to court. Can I get a mediator to help me and my spouse to talk about 1, 2, 3 issues? CRU has given that opportunity to be able to support our survivors. Another very important aspect CRU has done is psychosocial support. When you talk about psychosocial, I'm talking about counseling very differently, and even in terms of even giving shelters to these women. For example, I've been beaten at midnight with my 3 children. I have nowhere to go. CRU has given these women an opportunity to reach out, call for an emergency, then be able to be taken to a shelter where they can stay for maybe 1 week, maybe 3 days, for them to be able to rethink at that particular time, receive counseling, and then be able to decide on how to go about it. At the same time, there's economic empowerment. For a long time, CRU have discovered that once that power issue is in control, and mostly financial struggle issue, I'll continue being in that relationship, no matter how toxic psychologically, emotionally it is, just because I have nowhere to go. I'm saying, how will I eat? Where will I sleep? Where will I be? CRU has ensured that women, one, there's the fund, the Jasiri Fund, whereby women can get loan, do businesses, and at the same time be able to empower themselves in terms of economic empowerment. There's also an issue of continuous empowering community and the society about the GBV and even gender and SGBV issues. CRU has ensured that there is community dialogues. Women are able to talk, and even the leaders in the community, be it the chiefs in the community, they're able to talk about the issues of gender-based violence just to empower the community. So CRU, Catherine, has used a holistic approach to be able to support its survivors so they can be able to be in a safe space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivian. To our audience, that it is true that CRU, what we are hearing from Vivian, that it gives an holistic approach to IPV. So we are calling probably upon, if you go through this, it is important you can reach out to CRU. But I'm just wondering from Vivian, yes, you're offering all these services. How do you help our audience get to reach you?
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. CRU, first, we operate in different regions in the country. We're not just in Nairobi, that you only get us in Nairobi. We're in Nairobi, we're in Kilifi, we're in Mombasa, we're in Narok, we're in Isiolo, and so many other counties. That is one area. But there is this one central way where you can get through CRU. Of course, I cannot be able to ignore Facebook. I can't be able to ignore Twitter, whereby you can just get us at CRU Kenya. There you can get us directly. But I'm having an emergency and I want to reach through CRU. I have even no airtime. CRU has given all of us, has given our survivors an opportunity to be able to call through a toll-free line. That just I'm about to say. It is a free number. You call anytime it's available for either psychosocial help, for either you want to get a shelter, and the number is there on my screen, which is 0800 720 186. So CRU has given us that number that you can be able to call at any particular time. Maybe when in Isiolo, you're in Narok, you're in Nairobi, you're in Mombasa, and you're stranded and you want to help. Sometimes you want to reach out, but you have nobody to talk to. you don't know who to confine in, then you can just call our toll-free line, which is 0800 720 186. It is free of charge. The services are all free of charge. You will charge you for any service that you provide. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Vivian. It is good that our audience now know where to call, what to do when they're in danger, and no matter what time and from whatever and from wherever, different corners of this country, that you've heard that we work in different areas, but the toll-free, you can get anyone at any time of the day. It's a 24-hour line. It is open 24 hours and you will get assisted. And from what Vivian has said, allow me to marry these with Kimani Githongo. As the chair of the CPS Kenya, I would like you to probably now tell people, tell the audience what the association is doing, especially in reaching out to the individuals who have really experienced this IPV. For example, like you find that, okay, during the post-violence election, during any time that there's violence, there's strikes, people go through this. As the chair of the CPS, what is the association doing to reaching out to individuals who experience this or who have experienced this? Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine. And since the year 2012, when I got into the leadership of the counseling and psychological fraternity, we have had occasions to deal with these matters on a very, very regular basis. And we get lots and lots of inquiries. Hardly any day goes without getting a request to assist somebody who has been violated. Some of them go to the most extreme that we deal with the other stakeholders. Like Susan said, it is a multidimensional approach. But the very, very heartwarming news is that we got counselors across the country. And whenever we get that kind of inquiry or request, what we normally do is that we call upon the counselors. Most of the times, and this debate has been ongoing for quite some time, majority of the people may not be able to afford. And therefore, what we do is offer a psychological support, and in particular, to alleviate the trauma that this particular person may be undergoing. And therefore, as a fraternity of counselors and psychologists, I know we have always called upon counselors and psychologists to actually volunteer their services and be able to host these particular survivors through therapy sessions. And we have actually been very, very successful in trying to get the survivors some sense of stability before we can continue with other sessions. We also collaborate a lot with the police, especially when it is issues to do with the offenses that are categorized by the law. We collaborate with the hospitals. We collaborate with the organizations. Like now we are collaborating very much with the CREW to address GBV and SGBV issues. And we have been working very, very closely with CREW, who identified these particular survivors. And in turn, we give them the counselors on the ground who are able to take them through group or individual therapy sessions. And I know we have done over 220 therapy sessions to those survivors in Kilifi, Mombasa, Isiolo, Meru, Nairobi, and Narok. And the work still continues. And I know there are other stakeholders, including Amani Counseling Center, which is also doing this. And we have also been conducting online sensitization through webinars as an association and as a fraternity of counselors and psychologists. And we have been rolling out specific webinars, seminars, and continuous professional development forums in which we educate and let our counselors and psychologists share the latest in the world of GBV and SGBV. We have also organized lots of psychoeducation forums in schools, in churches, corporate organizations, organized groups, and the general public, especially in areas that where they may not be able to afford the very elaborate forums. So within the villages, within the estates, or within organized groups like Chamas, we have been able to circle our counselors and psychologists, and they go and educate on the people, especially to identify the signs and symptoms, and also to give awareness so that the persons who can be subjected to this can be able to be assertive, as well as be able to utilize the remedies that could be there, including therapy, legal avenues or legal doors, among other ways in which they can be able to cope with this particular situation, or be able to seek ways to remedy any abuse or any violence. So as counselors and psychologists, we are actually up to the game. Back to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Kimani, for the support that you're giving us from your office as the chair of CPS. And to our audience, kindly throw your questions to us. We are ready to answer. And on that note, I would like still to ask Susan from Amani Counseling Center, still tell us, how do you support clients of GBV from your center?
Thank you, Catherine. For the past at least 1 year, one of the things we've been trying to, we did successfully was to partner with CRU to be able to.
Can you hear me? Am I audible, Catherine?
Yes. Okay. Yes, you are.
So being able to work with CRU has really opened our eyes to the need for psychosocial support on the area of GBV. And so for that 1 year that we have been working with CRU, I think our eyes were opened and we were able to go to places where I think possibly we have neglected, or we were yet to reach, places like the Mukuru kwa Jenga, Mulolongo, Kibra. And these are places that we were able to go to have one-on-one counseling, and in fact, one police station, to have one-on-one counseling sessions with people who have gone through GBV. And I think after that, then we are in consultation as an organization to see, because the inquiries are still so many. The inquiries about, do you offer counseling services for battered women and those kind of things. So we are, as an organization, we are in talks to see, can we be able to form small support groups at our offices for such as women who are going through GBV. So that is something that is in the pipeline that has gained a lot of momentum for us to be able to consider to do, because the inquiries have increased, and what we've measured on in the last year and years back has been giving counseling services to such, but we see the need has increased. At a prevention level, and this one I'm very excited about, at a prevention level, one of the things we've done is we've been working at high schools. I am passionate personally about prevention, because if you can prevent even disease, we say that prevention is better than cure. And so even this issue of intimate partner violence, prevention at the high school level, for me, has been such an eye-opener. And I'm very passionate about it because I have been able to go to 2 schools, one in Nairobi and another one in Nyeri. And some of these ones are national schools. And the reason I've gotten excited about it, and we have done something successful as Amani, is the fact that when we have gone to those schools, what has surprised me is the number of students, particularly ladies, who are in abusive relationships. Girls in Form 2, Form 3, Form 4, just sharing about how they are in abusive relationships out there. But they have chosen to stay put because of the financial support they are getting from it. And so I'm saying that it is successful because when we have held meetings, small group meetings with these students at the school level, from what I'm getting from the reports that I'm getting, or we have been getting from the teachers, is our approach to having those small group talks about relationships, about one's sexuality, about family of origin issues. That has borne a lot of fruit, and some of these students have been able to get in touch with themselves and they have been empowered to see that they have options. They have options. I don't have to stick in an abusive relationship because of financial benefit that I'm getting from it. So that has been exciting me because it is at a prevention level and empowering these girls to see that I can do something about it. I can say no. I don't have to, because then my observation or our observation as an organization is that some of these students are coming from families where, some of the girls have been abused by their own relatives, and then they are forced to keep quiet. And they don't, because their fees has to be paid, then they keep quiet and they continue suffering silently in this, in this forum. So, so we have that door open out there in the schools and even middle level colleges to be able to support these students. One, with information of what help that is there. One of our mottos is Amani is, we have help at hand, we are available to support them, we are available to counsel them, and we are available to even refer. And some of them, even last week, we've had to refer some of them to CRU for legal services. So that's where we are at, and we are looking for other ways to be able to respond to the need that is there in the society. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Susan, for highlighting especially about the school children that still they are going through abusive relationship, something that people may not expect this to be happening because they are school children. It is very important, and what the kind of work you're doing to prevent this, it is important, and we applaud that. How about Esther? Edith, sorry. What is it that you're doing to help or support people who are going through abusive relationship at your center, Flourishing Counseling Center?
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, at Flourish Counseling Services, we are a new entity. We started last year, and our main focus is to provide psychosocial support through the digital platforms. And of course, we also have some physical sessions. So our approach has been different. I'm glad that my colleagues have mentioned different approaches and the avenues that have gone through. For us, I would say we picked an area that is a bit delicate. We started with churches, and we realized that such a sensitive topic of gender-based violence or intimate partner violence, it's not something that can be discussed so comfortably in a church setup because of the religious beliefs that this cannot happen to Christians or to this kind of religious group. And so ours is a preventive approach whereby we get into churches and we're helping our church members we create awareness on the effect of GBV, and we also helping them to understand that it happens to everyone. It doesn't really choose that because I am a born-again Christian or I am a a leader in this religious sector. I cannot, especially on the emotional. We realize that when it comes to physical abuse, majority of religious people will restrain from the physical, the fighting, the kicking, but when it comes to emotional, many people do not know that it is still an abuse. So our approach is we've started with churches, and I can really say that there's positive feedback from the churches, because now like our religious people, like the clergies are taking it very positively by allowing such discussions to be done on their pulpits, something that was never done before, because we respected the pulpit for spiritual aspects. Because of what is happening in the country, a lot of violence in schools, a lot of violence at our homes. And, many people respect the church, respect the mosque, respect other religious organizations. When a person has an issue, the first person to call is the clergy. The first person to call is a religious leader. But when these people do not have the skills and knowledge on how to identify violence and how to help at that level, it becomes a bit challenging. So that is one approach that we've taken. We also do referrals when we get clients of gender-based violence, and we offer psychosocial support at our level as we continue to do a lot of sensitization at a community level. So that is one thing I wanted to point out, that I think we picked as our Flourish Counseling Services, just to measure and look through the religious organizations such as churches, mosques, and other faith-based organizations. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Edith, that you're also reaching out to the churches. Susan are reaching out to the schools, meaning that the whole, it's holistic. We're reaching almost to everyone. Thank you very much. Now, maybe we respond to some of the questions which our audience have raised. I want to throw this question to Vivian, because it's specifically meant for CRU, and it is asking, does CRU support men suffering from GBV from their wives? Over to you, Vivian.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. One, I will openly and proudly say that CRU is a feminist organization that of course works with women and children, but I was explaining about CRU, that CRU talks about a holistic approach. These women and children come from a system, it's family subsystem, maybe a family system. And for this reason, it's very almost impossible to talk about children without talking about men, or talk about women without talking about men. So for that reason, CRU has given, even when I was saying about legal aid or legal help, anyone in toll-free can call our toll-free line for legal advice. You can call a counselor at CRU for counseling session, which is free of charge. But that does not mean that CRU only works with women and girls, because it only depends that our CRU will support women and girls. At the same time, we respect the fact that we're coming from a system whereby you can be able to get psychological help, you can be able to get legal aid from CRU. So CRU supports everybody in a relationship, intimate relationship, but with, of course, a focus on women and girls, because we are looking at the prevalence of violence, of intimate partner violence from the Center of Disease and Control. And you find that around 1 to 4 out of 1 in 4 women who are in an intimate relationship will go through violence. And out of 1 to 10 men will go through violence. I'm looking at 20 families. If it's 20 families, then it means that 20 families, 5 women will go through violence. And for this reason, 2 men will go through violence in those relationships. So of course, the preference is high when it comes to women, and to men, that also, you can't just say it does not exist, but it's there. So CRU supports all of us who are going through gender-based violence.
Thank you for answering that to the panelists, to the audience who had asked that question. Now they know that CRU can support anyone going through IPV, and they are welcome to do that. There is another question here which I want to throw to Susan, and the audience is asking if it is true that no amount of provocation can let an intimate partners raise a hand upon each other, then what exactly makes those in a relationship fight? If I may repeat, Susan.
Yes, please do.
Okay. Janet is asking, if it is true that no amount of provocation can let intimate partners raise hands upon each other, then what exactly, she wants to know what exactly makes those in relationship fight?
Wow. I'm not very sure whether I know exactly what she's asking, but I think looking at the last bit of the question, what exactly makes people in relationships fight? I think as I said earlier on, the reason people fight because of different reasons. One could be because they don't know any other way of resolving conflicts. This is the way they have known over the years. This is how they have seen maybe parents doing it. Or maybe people they themselves gone through it. Other times, maybe, I don't know whether to call it even personality, some personality issues. Other times people can be going through mental health disorders. And as a result of this, then they find themselves maybe very irritable, like certain personality disorders, make people to be very aggressive. They're unable to calm themselves. They become very irritable and can become even physically aggressive. So I think I'm answering not knowing exactly what the question was pointing up to, but I know some of the reasons that make people to fight physically has to do with maybe background issues, and number two, maybe personality or even mental health challenges, or they don't know any other way of resolving conflicts. So then learning how to resolve conflicts in other ways, conversationally, will be something for them to be able to learn. If there are background issues, that can be resolved through counseling. Personality, just being able to become aware that my personality predisposes me to sense of violence. That's what I would say. I don't know what my colleagues, my fellow panelists would want to add.
Hello, Catherine.
Yes.
Hi, Catherine. I would also
Hi,
I would like to chip in to what Susan has actually mentioned. I think one of the things that is important is to, just create awareness to the people who are going through, the silent pain in relationships or violence, that, when somebody melts abuse at them or to them, it totally has nothing to do with them, because when you talk about abuse, it comes from that context of, personal responsibility. It does not matter what the other person has done or what the other person has said. There's nothing that, can equate somebody to beat someone. So it is important for people to know that being in a relationship that is abusive has nothing to do with you. And one of the effects of, being in such kind of relationship, I've had Susan talk about some mental health disorders. We talk about depression. One of the effects of being in such kind of a relationship is depression. You can actually end up being depressed. We also have suicide or suicidal tendency. When we're in an abusive relationship, for example, we talk about emotional abuse. This is an abuse that cannot be seen, so it can be felt. So if this person is going through abuse that is emotional, they can even end up being suicidal. And also we've talked about, there's also the anxiety, and there's also the trauma aspect that comes with it. So one of the things we need to create awareness around is that, there's a lot of there's a lot of the disorders or mental disorders that comes around as a result of abuse. But then again, most of the perpetrators, when you talk about people who perpetrate, they could also be having some underlying conditions. For example, it has been proven that drug use disorder, people who abuse drugs or abuse drugs, you know, the chances of them becoming perpetrators or abusers are also very high. You know, when somebody comes from a background where there was a lot of abuse, chances of them becoming abusers is also very high. So these are some of the contributing factors to somebody becoming a perpetrator or a victim. For example, if a woman comes from a family that you know, they saw the parents abusing the mother, you know, they normalize abuse. They can't tell whether this is the right thing or the wrong thing because they saw their parents or people close to them going through violence. And as a result, they may struggle to differentiate when exactly is the right time to take action or when exactly is the right time not to take action. So answering Janet Oiro's question, it is difficult to actually tell why, you know, violence happens in such kind of a relationship. For me, what is important is affirming yourself that whatever the situation, nobody has the right to melt abuse at you, and therefore you need to be able to, you know, love yourself more, because we also say that people who go through abuse or people who abuse others, they have issues with self-esteem, you know. So you know, just being able to accept yourself, love yourself more the way you are, so then when somebody tries to, you know, melt some abuses with you, you know, you don't reach a point where now they take advantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Nerea. Thank you, Susan. What I'm getting from what you've both said is that there's no form of violence that should be entertained or encouraged to solve conflicts. We can never solve conflicts with violence. And not that I'm so much on you, Susan, but having spoken of what you have said, are there some of the notable red flags that one person who is in a relationship should look for?
Yes. I think I'll start with those ones who are dating. And I'm hoping there are many of them, maybe who are dating. Just like something that my colleague, my fellow panelist, Edith said, if a girl in the university or even in high school, or those of us who are working, you begin to see that somebody is too much wanting to know where you are, who you are with. They are forcing you to take photos where you are. If you say, I'm in a bus stop, the person tells you, take a photo and send me, for them to believe. That is controlling behavior. And it can only get worse. If somebody is saying you must, you know, maybe you're in a relationship and the relationship is getting too deep, too fast, it's like you feel as if you are on autopilot. If you are the lady and somebody is driving you too fast, they want you to do this, they want you want to know you, they want to know where you come from, they want to right away be sexually intimate with you. You have not even gotten to know even their second name. They are driving you such that you have no sense of will. You're not exercising your will. I think that's a red flag, because you need to be given time to even draw your own boundaries. And in fact, if you're in a relationship or one is in a relationship where their boundaries are being not being respected, I think that's a telltale sign that this person is controlling you, and they're not respecting your sense of privacy. Of course, there are other signs where somebody issues threats, or even calling you names, like telling you that if you didn't wear that dress, I wouldn't have, you know, I would have taken you out. Or if you are not too fat, you know, such statements. Or if you have worn that other dress, I would have taken you out. These are statements that tells you that this person is actually might abuse you eventually. Already that what they are saying, that it's what they are mentioning to you at that particular time is already a red sign that this person does not have your best interest, you know, at heart. And so you are having those kind of threats. You're having somebody who is controlling your behavior. They don't want you, they are restricting you even from working. And this one is for ladies, or somebody is forcing you to quit work. You know, that job I can provide for you. You know, I can provide for the two of us. You don't have to work. You can stay at home and I'll provide for all your needs. You know, they are forcing you to quit work. They are forcing you not to visit your relatives. They are forcing you not to have me time, you know, time to be with your family or with your friends. But they are controlling every aspect of your movement. No, you shouldn't buy that. You should buy this. So you feel as if you're being squeezed into a mold by a person whom you're in an intimate relationship with. Or sometimes even financially, you know, there are situations where somebody is just manipulating you financially, that you go out even for a simple meal and they want you to pay. I'll pay next time. Next time comes, they don't want to pay. For me, I think these are some telltale signs that you are in for trouble. There are situations also where somebody is very cruel to animals. Maybe somebody comes to visit you in your house, and the first thing they do when they enter is that they kick your cat, they kick your dog. Eventually they'll kick you, you know. So it is good to begin to look at some of these telltale signs. And many ladies say, I saw these things coming, but I thought this man is going to change. Or I saw some things, but I decided to ignore them. Or you could even be watching a TV feature or a movie, and somebody is celebrating because a woman or somebody has been physically abused. You know, where they are like, they deserved it. Somebody can make such a comment. They deserved to be beaten. You know, why were they responding that way? Just supporting what Nerea has said. So you can listen to someone's verbal declarations and be able to see that this is the kind of a person I'm actually intimate with. So eventually they will beat you, you know, or they are saying that, you know, statements like, I wouldn't want us to be led by a woman, you know, women are idiots, you know, such statements then would make you to begin to see that eventually this man will, or this lady will eventually abuse me. So I know those are a few that are telltale signs. Of course, others are family of origin. If somebody tells you that I saw my father beat my mother and my mother stayed in the marriage, Kwani, what is it about women that nowadays they can't allow themselves to be touched? You know, such a statement, and somebody is comfortably saying it. I saw my mother persevere through being called a cow. You know, somebody making a statement like that, that tells you, even you be called a cow, you know, or a dog, or something like that. I think these are some few. I don't know whether my colleagues have others.
Susan, your network.
Yes?
We've lost you.
Oh, at what point did you lose me? Did you hear the last thing I said?
Yes, where the family, talking about the family. I saw my mother being beaten. So what
oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, I did say, okay, let me put off my video. So there are times when somebody will blame other people for their own behavior. The reason I beat you is because, or the reason I didn't come, I canceled the date is because you didn't answer my phone call. You know, such statements, they are mild, but they are very aggressive. Somebody tells you, the reason I left you in the party, is because you wore the dress I didn't want you to wear, or I saw you talking to another man for so long. You know, that is it here? I think somebody is speaking. Okay. Yeah, so I think for me, those are some telltale signs. Or somebody never wants, like something like that Edith mentioned at the beginning, where somebody never owns up to, you know, to something that wrong they did. In every relationship, in terms of resolving conflicts, we say that when you're raising issues, the other partner should be able to listen, and where they need to apologize, they should apologize. But if you're with a person who you cannot sit down and have a conversation about resolving a conflict, they never own up, they never take responsibility for wrong things they did. You know, that one someone should be very careful about. That's a relationship, because in marital relationships or intimate relationships, people talk about issues they're not able to agree with, and they are able to agree and then they move on. But to have somebody who never owns up or even avoids resolving conflicts, for me, that's a telltale sign that you're in for a rude shock. Let me stop there so that others can have something to say.
As among the panelists, anyone else who has something else to say about that? Because I have another question, let me thank Susan for that wonderful presentation. Like we now just told us about the the red flags that we should be looking for. Some of them, like controlling behavior, family of origin, blame game, playing blame game, avoiding solving conflicts, that when to our audience, when you see such things, know that here you are in for a rude shock. And now to our panelists, there's another question which has come. I want to read it to you so that anyone can answer. I know of a friend and a colleague, a man who is a victim of GBV. How do I help? The wife beats him and controls his finances. He can't even spend 2,000 without calling her for permission. If I'm to read again, I know of a friend and a colleague, a man, who is a victim of GBV. How do I help? The wife beats him and controls his finances. He can't even spend 2,000 without calling her for permission. Over to you, panelists.
Yeah, Catherine, let me start, and then maybe my colleagues will add a few things. So this question is talking about a friend who's being abused. We say that as a friend who is witnessing or who is aware that the friend is abused, one thing they need to do is to stay in touch with this person, the one that is being abused, ensure that they stay in touch, and also be somehow creative, because if they're creative, they'll be able to, I think there's some noise coming from somewhere. Okay, yeah, so this is what I was saying, that as a friend, what you can do is first to stay in touch with the victim and ensure that you're creative with this person so that you can come up with, I would say, a secret code or a secret kind of language that you can communicate to this person so that the perpetrator does not know that someone else already know what is happening in the house because of safety measures. Another thing is ask your friend how they'll prefer you to connect with them, because these people, as we said, the abusers, the goal is to take control and power over the victim. So most of the time you find they're closer physically with the victim. So most of the time they may not be alone. They may not be on their own. So the only way to help as a friend, ask them how they would want you to connect with them, because either when you call, it may not be safe for them. When you send text, you don't know if the perpetrator is going to be checking their phones. So it is very important for the victim to let you know how is or what is the best way to connect so that you're able to also be in touch with them. I can also say that you also need to be very supportive and believe in these people. How do you remain supportive as a friend? Keep reassuring them that they're not alone. Yes, they might see that they are all alone in that issue, but reassure them as a friend. Let them know that they are not alone and there is help. There are resources that can be available to help these people come out of this thing. Let them recognize that, yes, it is not easy to talk about it. They may not tell everyone, they may not tell you everything. It is okay. Help them to understand that it is okay not to tell you everything, but whenever they are comfortable, they can always talk about it. And as a friend, you need to be very empathic, very compassionate, very supportive. Again, it is important that you help these people by respecting their right to consent. Yes, as a friend, you know that your friend is going through this. She's being the man is being abused by the wife financially, emotionally. So unless you realize as a friend that their life is in danger, if you note that their life is seriously in danger, then if it's not, avoid taking actions without their consent. Ensure that you consult them before you take actions to help your friend. This IBV, as we talk about intimate partner violence, is a stigma associated, or it's something that is stigmatized by the society and even to yourself. You stigmatize yourself based on what you're going through. So I would say that you need to respect their privacy as a friend. So don't call the family members, like calling your mother to tell your mother that your wife is abusing you. Ensure that you respect their privacy unless they're willing or they give you consent to speak out and tell other people, because this experience is very painful. It is stigmatizing, and would want to treat it with a lot of confidentiality. Would want to treat the identity of the victim with a lot of confidentiality. And another thing that is very important for you as a friend whose friend is going through this abuse is also offer them practical support. Yes, as much as you're there to listen, as much as you're there to call and just check on them, offer them practical support. Do they need shelter? Do they need you to be there physically? Do they need you to maybe go and get something for them? So don't just talk on the phone and leave them. Be willing to offer the practical assistance and even share the resources that can be of help to them. But if this thing escalates based on the friend's information, it is important to let them to report, as we've been told by Dr. Gidongo that the law covers all this. So it is important to report or seek for professional help, because as a friend, you may not be a professional or rather trained on how to deal with GBV issues. So you can do your level as a friend, but also encourage your friend to seek for professional help so that they're able to understand or rather support you fully and even get help for the other person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esther Sakwa. And I want to believe that our anonymous attendee has gotten help, and he will still continue supporting their friend. On that issue, let me put a hold on that and ask another question, which is here to the panelists. Because of time, the question goes like this: has culture and tradition played a role in enabling IPV or GBV? Like, let's say the idea of kuvumilia in relationship. If I'm to repeat, has culture and tradition played a role in enabling IPV and GBV, like the idea of kuvumilia in relationship? Over to you, panelists.
Maybe I can give it a bite, Catherine. Yes, we know for sure that culture in most African context played quite a bit of role. And it is not only in issues of IPV or GBV, we also know that parenting was basically left out to the ladies in most cultural setups. However, we cannot keep on dwelling in the past. And that is what Susan Gatia was saying. Just because I saw my mother being humiliated, my grandmother being humiliated, we have come of age. We have come from there. And therefore, we cannot be enslaved or held hostage by the retrogressive cultures. And that is why the Domestic Violence Act of 2015 has categorized all some of the cultural practices as SGBV or GBV or IPV. As a result of that one, we have now the assured remedies which come up with those retrogressive cultures. You will actually read and you see even wife inheritance or widow cleansing has been categorized as a form of domestic violence or IPV or GBV. And therefore, what we're talking about is that, yes, we take the stance that traditionally the culture that we knew played a role in enhancing, in enabling IPV and GBV. But we need now to come out of that and come to the world where actually now we are almost at par, that I can go to the kitchen and my wife can go to the kitchen. I cannot shout at my wife, she cannot shout at me. And all the roles that we can be able to take are good. We know for sure, and Susan said about this, that all of us, this saying has been there over and over again. It has been associated with marriage, that marriage is not a bed of roses. Yes, neither can we make it a bed of thorns, but it is sometimes very difficult to separate the thorns and the roses. And therefore, relationships should not be taken that they are all rosy. Differences will always be there, but we should not hide under the cloth of culture. We should not hide under the cloth of personality. We should not hide under the cloth of conflict, bad modeling of conflict resolution. We should now wake up and realize what constitutes violence within a relationship and be able to talk about them. And Susan has done well in saying, and even Edith has said, let us seek help. If it is that particular man who cannot be able to get out, as a friend, what I'll do is perhaps even give him a link to this particular conversation that is ongoing. And then he can be able to be awakened here and there. Or maybe drag him to where the men are having a conversation or where women are having a conversation and try and show him what he is going through. So let us not glorify cultures which are retrogressive. And that is what all the laws are trying now to deal with. Even us as counselors and psychologists, we also try to deal with that. The clergy also try to deal with that. And as upcoming people come up, our own children and the younger generation, they're no longer held hostage to culture. Then, therefore, we should be able to tell them that culture and the retrogressive actions that breed violence and abuse have no place in the modern society relationships. Back to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Kimani. Thank you for enabling us to understand what the culture does and that we shouldn't be upholding or encouraging cultures that are retrogressive. And due to time at this point, I would like to appreciate all the panelists. Thank you very much for coming. And I now like to give you just a minute to give us your parting shot at this. And as well as I appreciate the people who have attended this webinar, we really, really appreciate you. So can all our panelists give their final parting shots? You can start with you, Kimani, you are on.
Thank you, Catherine. I know it is difficult to talk about relationships and not talk about the pain in love. And therefore, I want to direct my audience or all of us to a video that is there, or a movie. It's called When Love Hurts, and another one which is called Why Do We Hurt the People We Love? And even as we do that, let us all remember that we're in this world to enjoy it. Life is too short. Let us not struggle in relationships. Let us just have good relationships and enjoy them. And if we can be able to go a mile and help as counselors, psychologists, or even as people of goodwill, those who are struggling in relationships, and be able to tell them that, well, let us look at relationship from a positive perspective and not from a negative perspective, this world could be a better place to live in. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Next, Susan.
Thank you, Catherine. I think my parting shot is, I need to say that it is said that one of the risk factors of being a woman is marrying the wrong or being in an intimate relationship with the wrong man. It is a risk factor of being a woman. And so, because you can have a woman who is very educated, coming from a good family, and then they are joined to a man who is going to abuse them for the rest of their lives. So that becomes a risk factor. And so to our audience, we don't have a single ladies. We don't have to get married. We don't have to. If I can be able to, as a single person, and I know there are several here, do your homework. Do your homework before you get into an intimate relationship. Do your homework well. If you're in, you don't have to get married. You know, you can remain single and be happy, than be married and be unhappy. If you are in an abusive relationship, Catherine, I don't know why you're, and Vivian, if you're, for those who are married who are in intimate relationships which are not working, I think it is good for you to know that you have an option. You don't have to spend the rest of your life in such a situation where you get depression, you're going to get post-traumatic disorder. It is good for you to know, I have an option. And that's why we've had this forum for us to discuss these issues. That's where you know there is a money. That's where you know there is crew, and you can be able to be supported. You don't have to remain in that abusive relationship and eventually die in it. So ransom yourself by knowing that you have a choice and there's a sense in which you can set yourself free. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Edith Sakwa, your parting shot.
Yeah, my parting shot is to the audience that this session has been very important, not to just as panelists, but everyone to create awareness. So I would want to urge everyone that has had this conversation that don't dismiss other forms of violence just because you're not being beaten physically. The first thing of dealing with emotional abuse is recognizing and acknowledging the experience. Because when you acknowledge, you're gaining back your power that was taken away by the perpetrator. Once you gain back the power, I would say this: physical and mental health should be your priority. Those should be the key things you need to look at as a human being. And as you continue in this relationship, ensure that you always have healthy, clear boundaries that will protect you against what we've just talked about. And lastly, do not blame yourself for what you went through as a victim, or do not blame yourself for what the perpetrator is doing, because some of these abuses, as we've been told by the panelists, are being done by people that were abused before, because hurt people hurt others. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you, Esther. Finally, not the least, Vivian.
Okay, people, good people, thank you so much. Reach out. Toll-free number for crew is 0800 720 186. 0800 720 186. Reach out for help. Reach out. Don't die alone. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, great people, to our panelists and to our audience. One thing I would like to say as my parting shot is that there's no amount of violence that is justifiable in solving a conflict. Conflicts can be solved. From what we've heard from our panelists, you'd rather be single, you'd rather be alone, but at peace with yourself. Don't entertain violence. So thank you very much, our great panelists and people who made it to join. We truly appreciate your presence. Thank you, Nerea, for being around. Thank you, and God bless you.